Aussie Battler podcast with your host, Mike Holt.
Are you interested in podcasts that uncover the truth? Tune into Widdershins podcast. Straight from science fiction, we uncover the technologies being developed right under our noses. We bring to you the world's leading scientists, engineers and experts to discover just how far away these things really are from becoming our reality. www.widdershinspodcast.com.
People around the world are asking how we have got to this point in our history. Why have governments been able to shut down whole countries while taking away our rights and destroying businesses and our future? Now, we have the same problems here in Australia as many other countries. We all know that there is something seriously wrong with our political system, but how have the political parties managed to ignore our constitution, brought in their own law system and created a dictatorship that is now telling us when we can leave our homes and even who we can associate with? There's something seriously wrong, isn't there, folks? I'll try and explain as briefly as possible the main turning points in our history since we became a nation in 1901. Once you see how the politicians have betrayed our trust in them and committed massive fraud and treason, you can then continue your own investigations that will help you become a part of the growing number of people who are ready to step in and help fix the problems the traitors have created. Our forefathers worked hard to create a nation out of 6 British colonies. The crowning achievement of their decades of hard work was the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act that came into being on January the 1st, 1901. Now, the Constitution lays out a blueprint for a federal government and 6 states with their own constitutions, but subordinate to the Commonwealth one. During the first 20 years of our nation, the country grew and prospered. In fact, it became one of the most wealthy nations in the world. And this was supported by the People's Bank, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Then along came that little man with a huge ego, Labor Prime Minister Billy Hughes, who, without the approval of the people voting in a referendum, signed Australia up as a founding member of the League of Nations. Later, the League of Nations became the United Nations. Ever since then, all policy and laws have been dictated by the United Nations. Some people say that Hughes's unilateral action created the Australian Republic, but without a referendum, that is null and void. The only reason the political parties have got away with their crimes and treason is because the people were never fully informed. Without informed consent, no agreement is worth the paper it is written on. Hughes was just the first of many politicians to willfully deceive us. Labor has always been part of the international communist agenda to create a one-world government. The next step in their plans was to take total control of the Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief in 1960. The political parties then went to war against Vietnam with our Commonwealth Defence Forces for the defence of the Commonwealth of Nations. In 1966, when Liberal Prime Minister Harold Holt took over, he took away our lawful pounds, shillings and pence, and that is still required by the Constitution. Instead, he brought in the Australian dollar. Once they took the money away, the government could not pay the Governor-General or the Crown with our lawful currency. The Australian dollar belongs to the political parties, and so does the debt. When Whitlam, an avowed communist Fabian, that is a soft communist, took the Queen out of the Constitution by changing the Royal Styles and Titles Act, without the permission of the people, voting in a referendum, as required by the Constitution, he committed high treason. Unfortunately, when Governor-General Kerr sacked Whitlam, no one restored the monarch, and so the treason continued. After that, in 1986, Hawke tried to pass the Australia Act, again without bothering with a referendum, in his attempt to finish off the work started by Hughes and Whitlam to make Australia a republic under the United Nations. But without a referendum, the Australia Act was and has always been null and void. You cannot change the Constitution without a referendum. Ever since then, all governments have been unlawful, without any authority. And this can be easily checked by reading the preamble of our Constitution that establishes we, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, as the supreme authority. The government is supposed to be the servant of we, the people, not a dictatorship as we have today. So as you listen to our podcasts, remember this as we discuss the massive fraud by the political parties and why our country is on its knees today. And always remember that we, only we, the people of the Commonwealth, united and working together, can fix the problems and get back to lawful government of the people, by the people, for the people. Knowledge is power. And if you want to know more after hearing this, then please buy Dick Yardley's book, Australian Political and Religious Leaders, Treason, Treachery and Sabotage, where he explains it all in great detail.
If you have chosen the Red Pill, then there is only one place to host your website. Enlightened hosting, no censorship. Domains, hosting, secure. Build your website and get online fast. www.redpillhosting.com.
Well, g'day again, and as you can see, I've got Dick Yardley in the studio here with me. How are you, mate?
Good, thank you.
Nice to have you here. I'm very well, thanks. And Dick and I have just got our coffee, so we're all set to go here. Dick, we're going to be discussing today a document that you have prepared, and there's one document for each state. So if you're in South Australia or Northern Territory, you download the South Australian one. We've got the Queensland one. What's the difference between them?
There's different seals that they've used, and in the way the different governors of the states have put these documents together. And like in Victoria, Victoria became a republic in 1975, and how that governor there did things, and yeah, there's just little bits of difference. So I've just made one for each state.
Now, when you talk about Victoria becoming a republic, how did they do that?
Well, they created a constitution of Victoria in 1975, and they had it written in or signed off by the Queen of Australia, which is joining the Commonwealth of Australia as a sovereign independent federal nation. So under that system, they're a republic because under a sovereign independent federal nation, you can't get royal assent from that date forward. So therefore, all you are is a republic.
I take it, though, that they did the right thing and had a referendum, right?
Ah, that's the problem.
I didn't think they would.
They circumvent the Constitution, and since 1973, the political parties are circumventing the Constitution a lot. Actually, it all starts back in 2nd of February 1960, when the political parties took a total control of the Governor General and Commander-in-Chief. Then we went to war with Vietnam, and then later on that they created their own private money system.
Right. All right. Well, I've got a document here that will explain all that, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put parts of this document up on the screen for everybody to read, and we'll go through it. So in the first paragraph, well, let's start right at the top. We've got here some lines with date 2020, and then over on the left-hand side, 2. So I take it that the lines over on the right are for us to fill in.
That's right.
And what do we put in there?
Well, our name and address.
Our name and address.
And then it's to the person.
Okay.
The public servant or the pretend public servant that's there, or the person that's hurting you.
Okay. So on the right-hand side, under the address, we put the date.
Yes.
Okay. And then on the left-hand side, we put the name and the address of the person that we're serving this paper on. Now, who do we serve this paper on?
Anybody that's interfering with your life, basically. It can be your local doctor trying to tell you that you must have injections because that's a constitutional issue. basically is a constitutional issue document.
Mm.
Anybody that's the police, every councillor, CEO, mayor,
Ticket inspector.
lawyers, judges,
Right.
registrars, just keep naming them. They're any politician there is, because they're all circumventing the Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act.
Now, should we serve this on them personally, or can we email it to them?
It's better off serving personally. Emailing it just is a good little button on the computer, says delete, and it's gone.
Mm. So what we should do, if we can't go and see them in person, we should print it out and register it.
Yes.
And then send it by registered mail and get a signature that they have received it. Once we've done that, and we've then told them that they are committing treason, what happens then?
Well, they should, but they need to read what's written there and start thinking about what they're doing, because what we're doing is we're just transferring the fact of misprism of treason from us to them. And if we're doing something about the misprism of treason, putting it to them because they consider they have authority over us. So we're just pushing the buck backwards to them to get them to sort it out.
So in other words, once we notify them that they are committing treason or misprision of treason, and let me just clarify what that is. Treason is doing anything against the Crown, right?
And the Commonwealth Australia Constitution Act.
And the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. So if they break anything in the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, they are committing treason. So people like Whitlam committed high treason, didn't they?
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
Hawke.
But then it's the whole political party does it, because the one man can't do it.
Mm.
So you have the whole party system at that time committing treason.
So in other words, we have a completely rogue government.
We don't have a government.
No.
It's not a government. It's got, and let's face it, it doesn't have authority. It's got no Crown authority.
It's a dictatorship, communist dictatorship.
It's a republic, political party dictatorship.
Mm. All right, so we...
Just going back to that dictatorship part.
Oh, yeah.
The proof of that, very simply, is when we have a referendum, they don't take any notice of us.
Mm.
We've had 3 referendums for councils, and we've had a referendum to remove the political parties and the Republican acts out, and they're still running under the same system.
Yeah, I've heard you mention 3 referendums about councils before, but I've only ever seen 2. The first one was when?
Oh, you'd have to... I'm not sure of the dates just off my head.
Was that in 78?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
One was 88,
Right.
and the other one was when we turned around and took all the Republican acts out, which was 1999. That removed all the acts right back to Commonwealth acts right back to the 2nd of February 1960, and the state acts back to the start of 1985, and Victoria back to 1975.
Mm. I see. Okay.
So therefore, your councils are right. Every state created, minus Victoria created another council under its republic in the early late 70s and whatnot. But the rest of the states, every other state created a local government act after the Australia Acts. So, and that's what we all voted out.
Okay. So Victoria really is a rogue state.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's why Andrews is doing all the things he's doing, selling us out to the Chinese. Mm. But let's get back to this document. So we put in our details, our contact details, and also the details of the person we're addressing it to. And it says in here, in order to stop and correct any wrongdoings.
Then you put the name of the persons that you're giving it to in there.
Right. Okay.
That's to stop him just chucking it in the bin, or how would you put it, passing the buck up, but keeping going to what he's doing.
Right. And actually what we'll do there is notice to principal and principal to whatever it is. I'll sort that out for you anyway. Actually, we should have done that in the PDFs, eh? Because that means that it goes up and down.
Yeah, but it can't. This doesn't go down because it doesn't revert. We are transferring it forward because we are in the system of knowing of treason, we're transferring it forward. They can't transfer it back.
Okay, all right. I'll chat with you about that later on, but we may reword this slightly, but it's the rest of it will stay the same. All right, mate, so what do we do then?
We transfer it to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much more we can do then. It's up to the people when they read it, which they're very foolish if they don't read it, because it's made as simple as I can possibly make it.
Mm.
And it's basically up to them to sort things out.
Well, what I'll do is I'll write an introductory letter, which people can download as well. I think we've already got one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that up as well. So there are 2 documents you need to download off the website. That's at the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast website, and it'll also be on cirnow.com.au website. You download the letter, you download this document that we're showing you, the notice, and we serve this on anybody we believe is committing treason or misprision of treason. So once they get this, what do you think their reaction is going to be?
Well, to some people, it would be quite a shock. To some people, they already know. And they just, how would you put it?
They just don't care.
When a judge turns around and says, you come to this court for justice, but in this court, I can't give it to you, he already knows.
Mm.
And like Crown Law, when they took me to court to shut me up, the Supreme Court judge, after a while, when he wouldn't let me, he wouldn't answer me when I was asking him about whether the court was under Clause 5 of the Commonwealth Australian Constitution Act.
Mm.
I ended up yelling it into court because he kept trying to speak over the top of me, but he turned around then and said to Crown Law, he can't win in this court.
Right.
And Crown Law said, no, he can't. So they knew it was treason.
Mm. And
so
knowing that,
all these judges, you can't tell me they don't know. I'm a farmer. I've worked it out.
Mm.
They're trained in law. Same with these solicitors. I've tried to talk to Crime Corruption Commission, and they are straight out of just a big joke.
Well, as we keep saying, when you play by their rules, you lose.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of Australians now who are waking up, and if you're watching this, you're probably one of the people who are already woken up. But if not, then this video will help you to understand just what has gone wrong with our Commonwealth of Australia. We no longer are a Commonwealth of Australia. We are a Republic of Australia, Communist Republic. Anyway, Dick, let's go back down here around down the document a wee bit. I'm not going to show the whole thing talk about the whole thing in here, but you have in here, if you were to pass the buck and hand this notice and knowledge to any other staff, agents, representatives or entities, then an agreement is automatically formed that you, as responsible, as well as any other staff, agents, representatives or entities, accept all personal responsibility for any actions that may follow, such as misprision of treason.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, once you've given it to them, it's up to them to work themselves out or, do something about what they're doing.
And how would they do that? Let's say you give this to the mayor.
Well, he's got to start thinking about whether he's legal and the rest of his council is legal. And under this system, they're not legal.
So if he takes no notice and continues business,
he's up for treason. He's enforcing it because they enforce, whether you pay your rates or not, they enforce.
Yes.
And you either pay up or they sell you up.
And until now, we've had no real recourse. But just recently, a bunch of us people have got together around Australia and we formed a national steering committee to convene common law courts. And we're actually working with the common law courts, UK and international. So John over in Scotland has been helping us to prepare all the documentation, get all our ducks in a row so that we do it lawfully under the Magna Carta and English common law. And now we are prepared to start convening common law courts. And I know you don't believe in them very much, but
I'm a great believer. Well, put it this way: and within our Commonwealth Australia Constitution, common law is bound into it. And when you go back to the Judiciary Act, before they started changing it, common law of England was to govern. So I am very informed. I'm very for common law. You can't be against it because it's our basic law within the Commonwealth Australian Constitution Act. But when you have a court that's privately made,
how do you enforce it?
That's the problem, and that's the problem everybody's having, is enforcing it, because you got to look at the people that we're up against. Every judge and every politician is sitting there with a noose around his neck, and basically they're fighting for their system, or they hang on to their neck from being stretched against what we're doing.
Okay, so let me just make a couple of points here. First of all, we have 25 million people in Australia. On average, how many public servants, judges, and etc. would you say there are in total around Australia?
I think there's something over 50% of people rely on the government.
No, that's not the answer. What I'm saying is, how many of them are actually functionaries of the government? Judges, lawyers.
Oh, functionaries, I wouldn't have a clue, but there's a big number.
Well, I'd say less than 1 million.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely less. So we've got 24 million people who are under the control of these criminals, and we outnumber them.
Yes.
So we are, and actually in our Constitution, the preamble states that we, the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, are supreme.
Yeah, we are as a people, we are supreme. That's dead right. There's no two ways about it.
And this is the basis that we're going ahead to form these common law courts. We just elected the Queensland Steering Committee. There was about 15 or 20 of us. I'm one of the 4 Queensland representatives and liaisons between the National Common Law Court. I'm also on the Common Law Court National Steering Committee. So what's going on now is that we are getting all our documentation together. We've already got a number of affidavits from people, so they will be heard in the Common Law Court first. Up here on the Sunshine Coast, we already have a venue. We have the people standing by ready to convene the Common Law Court. And what will happen is we will go into this venue and we will elect a court president, who acts like the judge but is not a judge. We'll have the bailiff, we'll have the sheriffs, we'll elect the sheriffs, and we'll elect the jury. And the common people like you and me, will stand for election. So, and we'll have 12 people on the jury. We'll all be volunteers, but that will be properly constituted as a common law court. Now then we get the affidavits, and we summons the people named in the affidavits to come to the court and give their evidence on both sides. So the people being accused will be able to come to the common law court and defend themselves. And what I keep telling people is, this is not about vengeance. This is about justice for all. So if you've been harmed, like you've been harmed, you lost your farm, you've lost money, you've been thrown in jail.
No, I haven't been thrown in jail.
Have you, John? Oh,
no.
Oh, what did you do?
I've survived, well I've survived that part.
Yes, but we have had confrontations with the police.
We've had confrontation from Canberra, Townsville, Innisfail.
Right.
They flew out of Canberra to try and shut us up.
Yeah. So all of these people who have done this to us, and I've been targeted too, they are now going to be held accountable for their actions. And so once they're convicted, if they are convicted, what happens then? Well, we have a few things we can do. First of all, we can put in a commercial lien on their property. Now, I know it's very difficult to do it in their courts, but we are stepping out of their jurisdiction into our common law jurisdiction. So we can put in a lien on the common law jurisdiction, which transcends their jurisdiction. The common law is above every jurisdiction. So it has valid lawful authority, and then we can just go and take everything off them. So with a lien, we can stop them completely. They can't sell their property, and it will be registered in their courts as well.
I don't know how you're going to do that. That's the part that worries me. A lot of people have put liens on things but can't get them registered. I know a gentleman down the Gold Coast who put a lien on councils or something down there, and he was trying to sell that lien if he could get it registered to the Russian mafia, so they would just take everything. But it's very hard to get anything registered when you've got so much sitting on top. That's
right. But
I do totally agree that common law of England overrides everything they've done.
Right.
Because in common law is entrenched in clause 5, and in the Judiciary Act it's common law to govern, and that's common law of England, not what the political parties did in 1988 and made it common law in Australia, which was under their definition of Australia created in 1973 when they created their own Australia, Commonwealth and Commonwealth of Australia, all outside the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act.
Well, as I mentioned before, we are working with the Common Law UK and International, and they've been going for 2 or 3 years already, and they have had some spectacular successes with this common law and applying it. And then there's Kevin Annett from Canada, who has also convened a common law court and convicted the Pope Ratzinger and a whole bunch of, what are they, the bishops or whatever they are, below the Pope. And as a result, Ratzinger had to resign from the papacy. He is now imprisoned within the Vatican. He can't leave the Vatican. I mean, he's living a life of luxury in there, but he cannot leave the Vatican because he knows that there's a bunch of common law sheriffs waiting out the front there, waiting to arrest him as soon as they catch him. And he can be arrested and then hauled before the International Common Law Court, I think in Belgium somewhere, The Hague or...
The Hague, I'm pretty sure.
Right, so, you know, it does work. And Ratzinger can't go anywhere, and he'll probably be stuck in there for the rest of his life. So once a common law court judgment is made, it's there, and they can't get rid of it unless they face the music. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, we want to hang these people. It depends. I mean,
it's got to be done judicially.
It has got
Otherwise, we are no better than what they are.
That's right.
And it's got to be done by proper judicial
exactly.
judges.
So with a common law court.
And before we can do that, we have to have a Governor-General and governors, state governors that represent the Crown, because they have the authority to do the appointments to the judiciary.
Right.
What we got today is like, I've forgotten his name, but he was the Chief Justice just before this lady. And he turned around and he just said straight out that we're under judicial enforcement. In other words, the political parties tell them what they've got to do in the Act. So there's no separation of powers. No. That was Justice French. He was when he was head of the High Court.
And of course, the judges are hogtied by all of the political party shenanigans. So I don't know if we can blame them. And certainly, if they are convicted of treason, we will give them an out, and that is that they change jurisdiction and come into common law and start acting correctly. But again, as you say,
it's got to be done judicially.
Correct, and we need a good Governor-General appointed by the Queen, the real Queen.
The High Court today tells you straight, because it's the political parties created the High Court in 1979. They created a High Court under their system called the High Court of Australia, under their definition of Australia. And then they took total control over the whole system. But I don't know what happened to the judges in the High Court when these politicians, political parties, created their own government, because they're supposed to be the guardians of the Constitution, whether it's the Commonwealth Constitution or the state constitutions. They're the guardians, but they haven't done a damn thing about it, although occasionally, like French and Gummo and a few others have said different things about it, but they've never stood up and say, well, this is not right, and gone into Parliament and gone crook at the Parliament for doing these things.
Well, of course, they'd just get arrested and thrown into jail. This is what the political party goons do.
Well, I think they get paid off.
Yeah. Either that.
There's a lot of money and
yeah.
a lot of control going on in different ways.
Well, when you consider that they've shut down the whole country now for over a month and they're paying out billions of dollars, where's that money coming from? They're just printing it up.
Yep.
It's paper rubbish.
It's political party money. It's not bound to us.
No.
It is, as the Constitution still states,
Mm.
we have to pay the governors, the Governor General in pounds, the Queen in pounds, the Legislative Assembly, or the House of Representatives, in pounds. The Senate's got to be paid in pounds.
And
So it's
we, the
kind of
people, have to
counterfeit.
be paid in pounds too.
And the part that amuses me there, even the political party's own private high court that sits as a quorum, there's no crown or constitutional authority, tells you that the Australian dollar's got no head of power.
Yeah. Well, you can see that on the paper or the plastic that they print. There's no crown on top of the Queen's head.
No.
So they're telling
But then
us.
they've got their Republican seal sitting there in that too.
We really need to understand what our rights are. Dick, would you like to say anything else about this document? I mean, you've listed all the things that they have done.
The letters patent of the 29th of October 1900, all Governor-Generals and Governors are to be, their commission is to be under Royal Sign Manual and Signet.
Okay, let me read that for you. Letters patent 29th of October 1900, and this is under the signature of Victoria R, which is the Queen. Instructions to our Governor-General and Commander-in-Chief in and over our Commonwealth of Australia, or in his absence, to our Lieutenant Governor-General, Governor, or the officer for the time being administering the government of our said Commonwealth. Given at our court at St. James's this 29th day of October 1900 in the 64th year of our reign. And shall I read the rest?
I don't think there's need to, but the main part in that was the fact that they had to be under Royal Sign Manual and Signet. Now, the Signet is the guarantee of the document.
Right. So the signet is like a seal.
Yes,
Right.
seal, signature, whatever you want, but it's a guarantee of it. That's in 2nd of February 1960, in the proclamation at that time, that was the date of the proclamation, they removed the signet and put in a seal that did not, you can only use a seal for what would pass the seal.
Right.
And they used a seal that was very minor to the system and had no relevance to be put over and hide the signet.
Okay, I just want to talk about two other things in the Constitution. In Part 2, the Senate, where it talks about how the Senate is to be formed, in Section 7, the Senate shall be composed of senators for each state, directly chosen by the people of the state. That does not mean by political parties. That means you and me, we choose our representatives. And voting until the Parliament otherwise provides as one electorate. And Part 3, the House of Representatives, Section 24. So remember these two sections, Section 7 and Section 24 of our Constitution. Very important. And this is the Constitution of the House of Representatives, shall be comprised of members directly chosen by the people of the Commonwealth, and the number of such members shall be, as nearly as practical, twice the number of senators. And again, only we, the people, get to choose our representatives, not the political parties. So political parties have absolutely no place in our government.
The biggest hassle with these political parties also is that when you create a political party, you have to go through their electoral act.
Mm. Their
electoral act makes you create a constitution under their system. And then when you sit in Parliament, you sit under your party constitution.
Right.
You do not sit under our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution, because those political parties only represent political parties. They don't represent us.
Well, they're sitting too under Roman law or Admiralty law, which is not our law.
It's dictatorship
Right.
law they're sitting under.
But what really opened my eyes, Dick, was when I pulled a CD out of my drawer that somebody had sent me a year before, and I just chucked it in the drawer because they didn't give me a covering letter telling me what it was. Anyway, one day I was cleaning out my drawer and I watched this CD. I thought, what's that? And by the time I'd finished 1 hour later, my jaw was on the ground, and I finally understood how they did it all. And this, you'll find this video on my CIR Now website. It's right up the top, Criminals in Government. Go and watch this video. because it explains how Rudd and Goss brought in the Reprints Act. So you might want to tell us a bit about the Reprints Act, eh?
The Reprints Act is, they brought it in Queensland anyway. They brought it in, they created their own parliament in Queensland, which was another thing which is against the our Constitution Act of 1934, when they turned around and took the legislative, the Senate out of Queensland. And then they turned around and created their own private government and parliament then, which was against that, as I said. But the Reprints Act, they can change an act to suit themselves. They don't have to go through Parliament. They just write in the reprints what number's at the back and just reprint such and such. We've just done this, and
yeah,
that's it. And then 2 years after that, they created 15DA, which is they don't have to pass it through Parliament. They just put it on the table in Parliament. If nobody bothers to read it, then it just gets passed a year later, or they can transfer it then to 2 years later, but then it has to get put in.
So the Reprints Act actually authorised themselves to rewrite acts that were passed under our true Constitution. They would rewrite them and copyright them.
It is not the acts. They took our acts and put their seals on them and copyrighted them. And while they were doing that in the early 1991, they turned around and they were running 2 sets of books. One set of books had the proper seals in it, and one set of books had the other seals in it. And they were, see, this proves the point that the political parties knew what they were doing. You can't run 2 sets of books without knowing there's corruption involved, without knowing about the corruption.
I know, it's just, you know, it would be funny if it wasn't so darn serious, because they think that they had fooled us, but there's smart people like you and a few other people around Australia who spent the time to study everything. And thankfully now we've got your book, and that just lays it all out. So thousands, millions of people now around Australia are waking up, and we can all help to do this. Once we know, we can talk to other people. And if I talk to 2 people a day, right, and I get them on side, because everywhere I go, I'm always talking to people about what this government has done and how they've hoodwinked us. I go to the post office now, and the lady behind the counter says, "Oh, how's it all going? How's the court? Are we going to get our government back?" You know, so people are telling the other people, and that's what we can do. We just talk to somebody, and they will spread the word, and they will spread the word. So we're like little pebbles in the pond. Dick, if you've got anything else to say, let's do that now. But I want to thank you very much.
Just go up a little bit further. I'd just like to go into the money side of things.
Right.
Because that's something.
Oh, yes.
Now, in 1966, we created, or not we, but the political parties created the Australian dollar. It's counterfeit. In one of the pages there, I've got the Australian dollar £5 and the £50 notes. Now, they have the Republic seals in them.
You mean dollar?
Dollars, yeah, sorry. £5, I mean $5 and $50 notes. They have the Republic seals in them.
Right. And they've taken out the Commonwealth of Australia. They just put Australia.
But that's under their definition.
That's right.
Once you put the Republic seal there, and like since 1973, when they created their own Australia, Commonwealth and Commonwealth of Australia, the contrary intention of those names have never been put back. So even today, anything with Australia or Commonwealth of Australia is written down, it is under the political parties' definitions, not under the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act.
Yeah, now, actually, you can check this by going to the United States Patent Trademark Office online and look up the serial numbers for these notes. They are registered to the political parties. It's not our money. It's all their fake plastic rubbish.
So what you've got to realise with that is the debt belongs to the political parties, not to us, because it's outside our Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act, as we just showed you before. And also, any contract with fraud is no contract. So just imagine how many people have got house loans under Australian dollars. How many students are paying off their education with Australian dollars.
Well, once we
All
start,
these contracts are void.
once we start taking back our true Commonwealth of Australia under common law, all of those houses will belong to the people.
Yes.
That's it. You can just wipe that debt off because it doesn't belong to you.
It's a fraud debt. It doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah. So the political parties will go bankrupt as soon as we can get them into court. So we're working very hard to do that. And Dick, I want to thank you for coming along today, and I hope the coffee was good.
It was. Yes.
And
No, thank you very much for having me.
my pleasure. Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, bye.
I'm just a lonely old rover, sitting alone in this bar. I've been thinking it over, got no money to refill my jar. Spent so many years droving, one night stands in small towns. Never knew where I was going till we reached the darling downs. But I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no my horses no more, getting too old for all the plains, and the bouncers tossed me out the door. I'm getting used to these aches and pains, but I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no say, and I won't be out there riding, chasing brumbies across the range, shearing live sheep on Sundays, and drinking till I'm blind. But I wouldn't change a thing. Life is just that way. You take what your life brings. You know we have no say, and I won't be out there riding no more.
If you're enjoying the Bloody Aussie Battler podcast, please consider donating to help keep us going. You can donate just once or make it a monthly donation. Any amount is welcome. To donate, go to our website at www.thebloodyausiebattler.com and click on Donate.